The royal hall of the Sarathian Empire glittered like 1,000 stars. Tall crystal pillars reached toward the ceiling, glowing in soft violet light. The alien nobles stood in silent admiration as their queen entered. Queen Valora, ruler of 10,000 worlds. Her presence alone made the air tremble. Her skin shimmered like moonlight over ice, her long silver hair floating gently behind her as if moved by invisible winds. Her eyes, pale and glowing, held wisdom gathered over 100 years of reign. Every Sarathian in the room lowered their heads, for they worshipped her like a living goddess. And beside her stood a man who did not bow, Captain Ethan Hale, a human soldier who had earned his place as her royal guard. Among the tall, elegant Sarathians, he looked small and rough, his skin tanned, his jaw firm, his uniform simple. Many nobles whispered behind their hands, wondering why their queen trusted such a fragile creature from a war-torn planet. But Valora never cared for their whispers. She had chosen him because he was loyal, because when others saw her as a symbol, he saw her as a person. Today the queen was to address the entire court. It was an important day. Peace negotiations with the human colonies were beginning. The hall buzzed with quiet tension. Some of the council wanted war, but Valora wanted peace. She stood on the crystal dais, her delicate hands clasped before her. Ethan stood a few steps behind her, always watching, always alert. As she began to speak, her voice flowed through the chamber, clear and calm. "My people," she said, her voice echoing like music. "The cycle of war must end. We have taken enough lives. It is time we learn." Her words stopped suddenly. Her body swayed. Her eyes blinked rapidly as if something invisible struck her. The glow in her veins flickered. "Your Majesty." Ethan's voice broke the silence. Before anyone could react, her legs gave way. The queen collapsed, her crown tumbling across the floor, spinning until it hit the foot of a guard. The hall erupted into chaos. Nobles gasped, guards rushed forward, and the healers screamed orders. Ethan didn't wait. He pushed through the crowd, his heart pounding. He caught her before she hit the cold marble floor. Her body felt weightless in his arms, too light, too fragile for a being of such power. Her eyes fluttered open for a brief second, and in them, he saw not the mighty queen of the Sarathians, but a woman, frightened, confused, and in pain. "Stay with me," Ethan whispered, pressing his hand gently against her cheek. "Valora, stay awake!" Her lips parted, trying to speak. No sound came. Only a faint whisper of air escaped. A name, maybe, or a plea. Then her eyes rolled back and she went still. The violet glow around her body dimmed. For a terrifying moment, the hall turned cold and silent. "She's fainted," cried one of the healers, rushing forward with glowing instruments. They lifted her from Ethan's arms carefully, placing her onto a levitating stretcher. Her crown still lay on the floor, forgotten. Ethan's hands trembled as he stared at her. The woman he had sworn to protect, the one who had trusted him when no other Sarathian would, was unconscious and pale as glass. He took a slow breath and looked around. Every alien face showed fear but also suspicion. Some eyes turned toward him, sharp and accusing. "She was fine until now," one noble hissed. The human was nearest her. Ethan clenched his jaw but said nothing. He followed the stretcher as they carried the queen away, ignoring the whispers, ignoring the hate burning in their glowing eyes. His duty was not to defend himself. It was to protect her. In the shining corridors of the palace, the lights dimmed as they moved past. The healers whispered prayers in their ancient tongue. Ethan walked beside them, silent, watching every flicker of her pulse on the monitor beside her bed. He had seen death before, on the battlefield, in the screams of men. But this was different. This was fear. A fear that something was deeply wrong, something no one else could see. As the doors of the royal infirmary closed behind them, Ethan's gaze hardened. He didn't know what had caused her collapse. But one thing he knew for certain: it wasn't ordinary, and deep inside him, a quiet voice whispered a truth he couldn't ignore. Someone did this to her. The royal infirmary glowed in shades of silver and blue. Strange alien machines surrounded the queen's bed, their lights flickering softly as they scanned her body. The rhythmic hum of healing energy filled the room. Queen Valora lay still, her eyes closed, her silver skin pale and dull, her glow almost gone. The royal healers worked tirelessly, speaking in their ancient Sarathian language. Their long fingers moved over glowing crystals, adjusting energy patterns and vital flows. Yet despite all their efforts, her life signs remained weak. Every few minutes one of them shook his head helplessly. Ethan Hale stood in the corner watching in silence. His heart felt heavy. The sight of her lying there, lifeless, fragile, tore something inside him. He wanted to help, but he knew they would never allow him near her. To them, he was still only a human guard, a foreigner, a lesser being. "Step back," one of the healers snapped coldly when he moved closer. "Your presence is not required here." Ethan's jaw tightened. "She's my queen," he said quietly. "I have sworn to protect her." "You've done enough," the healer hissed, turning away. Ethan clenched his fists but didn't argue. He forced himself to stand still, though every instinct screamed at him to do something. Hours passed. The healers came and went. None could explain what had happened. When night finally fell over the palace, the healers left to rest, leaving 2 guards outside her chamber. Ethan stayed behind, claiming he would watch over her. They allowed it reluctantly, muttering that he was wasting his time. But Ethan didn't move. He sat by her bed in the quiet room, the glow of the machines painting soft lights on his face. For the first time, he noticed how peaceful she looked. Without her crown, without the royal robes, she looked less like a queen, and more like a woman. A woman who carried the weight of galaxies on her shoulders. He reached for her hand slowly. It felt cold, too cold. Her glowing veins pulsed weakly beneath the surface of her crystal-like skin. He frowned. Something felt wrong, not natural, not like an illness. Then, as his fingers brushed her neck, he felt a faint vibration. His eyes narrowed. Carefully, he lifted the edge of the delicate silk fabric that covered her collarbone, and there, half hidden beneath her skin, he saw a tiny metallic shard glowing faintly, like a dying ember. Ethan's breath caught. He knew that device. He had seen it during the human-Sarathian War. It was called a control shard, a cruel invention used to manipulate prisoners, keeping their bodies alive but weakening their minds. The shard forced obedience, suppressing emotions and thoughts. But why would it be inside the queen? Ethan's heart pounded. "No," he whispered. "This can't be right." He looked closer. The shard's energy was unstable. It pulsed irregularly, sending small ripples through her veins. It was killing her slowly. Ethan sat back, his hands trembling. His mind raced with questions. Who would dare implant such a thing in their own ruler? And why? He remembered whispers among the guards, rumors that the High Council had disagreed with her recent choices. Queen Valora had stopped the invasion of another human colony, claiming that peace was wiser than blood. Many Sarathian nobles had seen that as betrayal. Was this their punishment? A wave of anger rose inside him. He had seen cruelty before, but this was worse. To hurt their own queen just to silence her mercy? That wasn't just politics. It was evil. He looked at her again, her face pale against the pillow. "You tried to protect us," he murmured softly, "and they punished you for it." He wanted to remove the shard, but he didn't know how. One wrong move could end her life. So he did the only thing he could. He vowed to uncover the truth. He would find who did this, even if it meant defying the whole Sarathian Council. As dawn approached, the first rays of alien sunlight spilled into the chamber. The queen stirred faintly, her fingers twitching as if reaching for something. Ethan leaned closer, his voice gentle. "I'll fix this," he whispered. "I promise you, Your Majesty. Whatever they did, I'll make it right." For a moment he thought he saw a flicker of light in her eyes, faint but real, like her soul had heard him. Tethan squeezed her hand softly, determination burning inside him. The human guard had made a silent promise that morning. A promise stronger than any command, stronger than fear itself. He would not rest until he uncovered the hidden reason behind his queen's fall. And for the first time, the fate of a queen rested in the hands of a human. The palace was quiet that night, but Ethan's mind was not. Sleep never came to him. He stood by the tall window of the queen's chamber, staring at the twin moons that floated over the silver sky. The stars above the Cerathian capital looked so peaceful, so calm. Yet beneath that beauty, darkness hid in silence. Queen Valora was still unconscious, her weak breathing steady but fragile. The machines beside her whispered softly, keeping her alive. Every few minutes her glowing veins flickered faintly, as if her body was fighting against an unseen force. Ethan's eyes kept going to that faint spot on her neck, where the tiny shard glowed under her skin. He could not remove it yet. He needed answers first, so when the guards changed shifts, Ethan quietly slipped out of the room. His boots made no sound against the marble floor. He knew the palace well now, every hallway, every patrol route. Being the Queen's guard meant knowing how to move unseen. He made his way toward the Royal Archive, a massive circular chamber deep beneath the palace. It was forbidden for humans to enter, but he had long stopped caring about their rules. If the truth about that shard was hidden anywhere, it would be here. Inside the archive, shelves of glowing data crystals floated in the air, arranged by royal code. Ethan searched the console using the Queen's name and her recent health records. He wasn't trained in Cerathian technology, but he had learned enough from observing their systems. After several failed attempts, the console finally unlocked a file labeled Project Seraph Code V. He opened it and froze. The document wasn't medical. It was political. It contained council meeting transcripts, debates about Queen Valora's growing emotional instability. One section made his stomach twist. Her sympathy toward human colonies is unacceptable. The Queen has grown soft. If she cannot be persuaded, we will ensure control is maintained. Below that line was an image, a small metal device, the same shard Ethan had seen in her neck. The council had called it a precaution. His chest tightened with anger. They did this to her, he whispered. Her own council. He slammed the console shut and leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. He could almost hear her voice in his mind. Calm, gentle, always speaking about unity and understanding between species. She had risked her authority to stop the war, to give peace a chance. And they had repaid her with chains. When he returned to her room, dawn was breaking. The soft golden light spilled over the Queen's sleeping face. Ethan sat beside her once again, watching her breathe. Your Majesty, he said quietly. I found it. I know what they did. Her eyelids fluttered. For a second he thought she wouldn't wake. But then her silver eyes opened slowly, weak, confused, but aware. Ethan, she whispered. Her voice was faint, fragile like glass. Why are you still here? He smiled sadly. You fainted, remember? You scared everyone half to death, especially me. Her lips curved weakly. I told them not to trust humans. And yet you stayed, he shook his head. No, Your Majesty. You're wrong. You were the only one who ever trusted me. For a moment, her expression softened. Then pain crossed her face, and she turned away slightly. They will punish you if they see you here. I don't care, he said simply. They already punished you. I saw it, the shard. They put it inside you. The council did this, didn't they? Her eyes filled with tears, not glowing light, but real tears. She didn't speak for a long time. Finally, she whispered, They feared I loved your kind too much. They feared I would change everything. Ethan took her hand gently. And what did you want to change? Her gaze met his. I wanted peace. And freedom. For all of us. The silence that followed felt heavy with truth. Ethan's heart ached. Not just for her pain, but for the courage it took to dream of peace in a world that only understood power. He lowered his voice. "Then let me help you, Valora." Her eyes widened slightly when he used her name, but she didn't stop him. Instead, she gave a weak smile. "You can't fight the Council. They control everything." Ethan's expression hardened. "Then I'll start with what I can control. I'll free you from that thing. I promise." Her hand trembled in his. "You'll die trying." "Maybe," he said softly. "But at least I'll die doing something right." The Queen's eyes filled again, not with sorrow this time, but with a quiet, fragile hope. As her breathing slowed and she drifted back to sleep, Ethan stayed by her side, his heart steady with one burning thought. If no one else would protect her, then he would. And as the morning light touched the Queen's crown lying beside her bed, Ethan made a silent vow that nothing, not even an empire, would stop him. The next night came heavy with silence. Storms of violet lightning flashed far beyond the palace walls, echoing like angry drums across the alien sky. The Queen's chamber was dim, the soft glow of machines surrounding her fragile body. She had drifted back into sleep, her energy too weak to fight the poison pulsing from the shard. Ethan sat beside her, his hands trembling slightly as he cleaned the blood from the burn on his arm. He had tried everything he could think of, read her medical files, searched the archives, even studied the healing machines. But the shard kept drawing power from her. It was feeding on her life. He knew what he had to do. He had known it since the moment he found the file in the archive. The shard could only be removed by physical force, by tearing it free. It was dangerous, maybe fatal, but doing nothing meant watching her die slowly. He looked at her pale face and whispered, "I'm sorry, Your Majesty, but I can't just stand and watch you fade away." He prepared his tools. A sterilizer, a healing band, and a small blade made of human steel. His hand shook slightly, not out of fear, but of the weight of what he was about to do. He took a deep breath, placed his fingers on the glowing skin near her neck, and began to cut gently. The moment the blade touched her skin, a surge of blue light burst through the air. The shard resisted, pulsing violently, sending waves of pain through her body. The Queen gasped and screamed, the sound echoing like a broken song. Ethan gritted his teeth, forcing himself not to stop. "Hold on, Valora," he shouted. "I'm here. Just hold on." The doors burst open. Guards stormed in, their energy weapons raised. "Stop, human. What are you doing to the Queen?" "Saving her," Ethan roared. He pulled harder. The shard screamed, a sharp metallic cry, and then with one last surge of light it ripped free from her flesh. The room exploded with bright energy. The guards were thrown back and Ethan stumbled, clutching the glowing shard in his hand. Smoke rose from his burned palm, but he didn't let go. The shard pulsed violently, then shattered into dust. When the light faded, silence filled the room again. Ethan looked up, breathing heavily. The Queen lay still, her body glowing softly once more. Her breathing was steady now, calm and natural. Her skin shimmered again like moonlight. "She's alive," Ethan whispered. Relief flooded through him like a wave. But before he could move, the guards tackled him to the ground. "Restrain the human," one shouted. "He attacked the Queen, no." A weak but commanding voice cut through the chaos. "Release him." Everyone froze. The Queen was awake. She sat up slowly, her silver hair falling over her shoulders, her eyes glowing brighter than ever before. "He saved me," she said softly but firmly. The guards hesitated, then obeyed. They stepped back, their weapons lowering. Ethan got to his knees, still panting. "You're awake," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. "You're... okay." Valora looked at him for a long moment, her gaze filled with something between awe and gratitude. "You risked your life for me," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "That's what humans do, remember? We don't abandon the ones we care about." For a moment her expression softened completely. "You broke every law of the Empire for me, Captain Hale. They will not forgive you easily." I don't care about them, he said simply. All I care about is you. Her heart trembled at those words. She had ruled for a century, commanded armies, faced death without fear. But no one had ever said something like that to her before. Outside the chamber, the alarm bells began to ring. The council had learned what happened. Guards filled the corridors. Ethan and Valora exchanged a quick glance, both knowing that their moment of peace was over. Ethan stood tall, placing himself between her and the door. They'll come for me, he said quietly, but I won't let them touch you. Valora rose from the bed, her strength returning with every heartbeat. Her silver eyes burned with a new light. Not cold authority, but fierce determination. No, Captain, she said, stepping beside him. They will have to go through both of us. For the first time, the Queen and her human guard stood together, not as ruler and soldier, but as allies against an empire of fear. And in that moment, under the glow of alien lights and the echo of distant thunder, something unspoken passed between them, something stronger than loyalty, deeper than duty. It was trust, it was courage, and perhaps hidden beneath it all, it was the beginning of love. The morning after the Queen's recovery, the entire palace was trembling with tension. The great halls that once shone with peace now buzzed with whispers and fear. Rumors spread faster than light. The Queen had awakened, and a human had touched the sacred blood of royalty. Ethan Hale stood alone in the center of the throne room, bound by glowing chains that dug into his wrists. The alien guards surrounded him with their spears aimed at his chest. His uniform was torn, his arm bandaged where the shard's light had burned him. But his eyes, they were calm, steady, unafraid. Above him, on the high platform, sat the High Council of Sarathia. 6 ancient beings with faces like carved stone and eyes glowing with arrogance. They had ruled in shadows for centuries, guiding even the Queen's will. Now they stared down at Ethan as if he were an insect. One of them spoke, his voice cold and metallic. Human Ethan Hale, you are accused of treason, assault on the Queen, and tampering with sacred Sarathian technology. Do you deny these charges? Ethan raised his head. His voice was quiet but firm. I don't deny touching the Queen. I deny harming her. Murmurs echoed through the chamber. The counselor's glowing robes shimmered with irritation. You admit you interfered in royal affairs, another hissed. You had no right. She was dying, Ethan said, his voice rising slightly. You were killing her, and slowly, with that shard you placed in her. I did what none of you had the courage to do. The hall went silent. Even the guards seemed to pause. The first counselor leaned forward. You know nothing of our ways, human. You act out of emotion, a weakness of your kind. Ethan smiled bitterly. Maybe emotion is weakness to you. But it's also what makes us human. It's what made her different from you. The counselors hissed in anger. The lead one stood, his voice echoing like thunder. Enough. You will be punished for your arrogance. The penalty for treason is death. The guard stepped forward. Ethan didn't resist. He only looked toward the door, hoping, foolishly longing to see her. And then he did. The great doors burst open with a rush of silver wind. Every head turned. Queen Valora entered, her gown flowing like liquid light, her crown gleaming. The glow in her skin was strong again, alive, radiant. The crowd of nobles gasped and bowed instantly. She walked straight to the center of the chamber, her steps echoing with power. Stop, she commanded, her voice sharp as crystal. The guards froze. The counselors stiffened. The trial is over, Valora declared. The lead counselor frowned. Your Majesty, this human saved my life, she interrupted firmly. Her eyes flashed with fury. He removed the shard that you placed in me. Gasps spread through the chamber. The counselors exchanged nervous looks. Your Majesty, we did it for your protection, one stammered. Valora took a step closer, her voice low but fierce. You did it to control me. You feared I was becoming too human, too compassionate. You feared peace. The counselors were silent now. None dared speak. She turned toward Ethan, her expression softening. You risked everything for me. You disobeyed their law, but you obeyed your heart. For that I owe you my life. Ethan bowed his head slightly. I only did what anyone should have done. The Queen faced the council again. From this moment, Captain Ethan Hale is free of all charges. His bravery will be honored, not punished. The councilors glared but couldn't disobey a royal decree. They bowed reluctantly, muttering in anger. Valora moved closer to Ethan, lowering her voice so only he could hear. They will still hate you for this, she whispered. He smiled faintly. They already do. Her eyes softened. Then let them hate. You have my protection now. The council dismissed the guards, but the air in the hall remained heavy. Everyone knew this act had changed everything. The Queen had openly defied the council, and done it for a human. As they left the chamber together, Ethan glanced sideways at her. You didn't have to come, he said quietly. She looked at him, her expression unreadable but warm. Yes, she said softly, I did. Because for once someone saw me not as a queen, but as a person. Ethan's chest tightened at her words. He didn't know what to say, so he simply nodded. Outside, the alien sun was setting, casting golden light through the crystal corridors. For the first time since the war, peace felt close. Fragile, trembling, but real. Yet deep in the Queen's heart, she knew the battle was not over. The council would not forgive easily, and now both she and her human guard were marked. But as she walked beside him, their shadows stretched together across the shining floor. A queen and a soldier, two souls from different worlds, standing against the same darkness. Days passed after the trial, but peace did not return. The palace felt quiet, too quiet, like a calm sea hiding storms beneath. The Queen's command had saved Ethan's life, but it had also shaken the foundations of Cerathian power. The High Council had bowed that day, but their pride had not died. In the grand halls, whispers followed every step Ethan took. Alien nobles turned away when he passed. Guards looked at him with cold eyes. To them he was still a human, and now a dangerous one. But the Queen was different. Since that day she had changed. Her smile had become softer, her eyes warmer. Whenever she saw Ethan standing guard outside her chamber, she would stop and speak to him, not as a ruler to a soldier, but as a woman speaking to someone who understood her loneliness. One night, as the palace lights dimmed to their evening glow, Valora asked Ethan to walk with her through the royal garden. The garden stretched across a floating terrace, filled with glowing flowers that shone like stars. The air was warm and sweet, the sky painted in shades of silver and blue. For a long time they walked in silence. Then she said quietly, "You've been avoiding me." Ethan looked down, embarrassed. "I didn't want to cause more trouble for you." "The council already thinks I'm a threat," Valora smiled faintly. "You are a threat to their pride, not to me." He glanced at her. "They'll try something again." "I can feel it," she nodded slowly. "So can I." Her voice lowered. "They came to me today, the council. They demanded that I remove you from service. They said a queen must not show weakness by protecting a human." Ethan's fists clenched. "And what did you say?" "I told them I would rather lose my throne than betray the man who saved my life." Ethan stopped walking, his eyes wide. "You said that?" She met his gaze. "I did, because it's true." The emotion in her voice made something inside him ache. He didn't know how to answer. For a moment, neither spoke. The wind whispered softly between them, carrying the scent of glowing blossoms. But far above, hidden among the towers, shadowed figures watched them. The council's spies. They saw how closely the Queen stood beside her human guard, how her voice softened when she spoke to him. And they reported everything. That night, while Ethan slept in his small quarters, the palace alarm suddenly blared. He woke instantly, reaching for his weapon. The door burst open. Guards in black armor rushed in. By order of the High Council, their leader barked. "Captain Ethan Hale is under arrest for espionage and the corruption of royal authority." Ethan tried to resist, but they struck him with energy rods. Sparks flashed, pain burned through his body, and darkness swallowed him. When Valora heard the noise, she ran through the halls barefoot, her silver gown flowing like moonlight. "Where is he?" she cried. "Where have you taken him?" No one answered. The guards bowed their heads in silence. She stormed into the council chamber, her fury shaking the air. "You will release him at once." The councillors looked calm, smug. "He has confessed to nothing, Your Majesty," one said smoothly. "We merely suspect him of influencing you." Emotionally, Valora's eyes blazed. "Emotionally?" she repeated, her voice sharp as crystal. "You call kindness a crime now?" "You are our queen," said the eldest councillor. "But even a queen must remember her duty to her own kind. Love for a human weakens you." The room fell silent. The word hung in the air, love. Valora froze. For a heartbeat, she said nothing. Then she stepped forward, her voice shaking not from fear but from rage. "If loving a human makes me weak," she said slowly, "then perhaps weakness is what our empire needs." The councillors gasped. "You admit it, then?" "I admit that he has more courage, more honor, and more heart than all of you combined," she said fiercely. Before they could stop her, she raised her hand. The royal mark on her palm glowed bright. "By my authority as queen, I command the immediate release of Captain Ethan Hale." The council tried to object, but their voices drowned beneath the thunder of her power. The chamber lights flickered. Her voice boomed through the palace. "If you defy me again, I will dissolve this council myself." The guards had no choice. Ethan was freed. When she found him moments later, still weak and bruised, she knelt beside him. "I told you," she whispered, tears in her silver eyes, "I will protect you now." He tried to smile through the pain. "Looks like you meant it, Your Majesty." She shook her head gently. "No, Ethan, not Your Majesty." "Just Valora." Their hands touched, one warm, one cool, and for that brief moment titles and bloodlines meant nothing. It was not queen and soldier anymore. It was two souls who had chosen each other in a world built to keep them apart. The palace was no longer the same after that night. The queen's command to free Ethan had shaken the empire to its core. Across Sarathia, nobles whispered in disbelief. Their perfect ruler had defied the council for a human. Valora knew what she had done. She had drawn a line that could not be erased. Every sunrise after that seemed quieter, every corridor colder. The council no longer dared to confront her directly, but she could feel their hatred behind every polite smile. Ethan, though free, was still not safe. He was forbidden to leave the palace, forbidden to wear his uniform, forbidden to stand at her side. To the people, he was a scandal. To her, he was hope. Late one night, she visited him in the old observatory at the top of the palace towers. It was the one place untouched by politics, where the stars looked close enough to touch. Ethan stood there staring at the twin moons. When Valora entered, he turned and smiled faintly. "You shouldn't be here," he said softly. "They'll use it against you again." She stepped closer. "They already have," she replied. "But I don't care anymore." For a moment, neither spoke. The wind moved through the broken glass panels, whispering like ghosts. "You saved me again," he said. "You risked everything." Valora shook her head. "No, Ethan, this time I didn't save you. I saved us in what we stand for. A world where feeling isn't weakness, where love isn't forbidden." He looked at her, the moonlight painting silver on his tired face. "Do you really believe that world can exist?" She smiled sadly. "I have to believe it. Otherwise everything we've done means nothing." They stood close now, their hearts heavy but calm. Yet deep inside, both knew peace would not last. The council would not rest. And they were right. The next morning, explosions shook the palace. The council had launched their move, a coup. Their soldiers flooded the halls, their ships surrounded the city. They called it the Purity Reclamation. Their goal was clear: remove the queen and erase the human. Ethan woke to the sound of gunfire and the smell of burning plasma. He grabbed his old rifle and ran through the halls. shouting orders to the few loyal guards who still stood with the queen. He found Valora in the throne room, standing proud, her royal gown torn, her crown shattered, but her eyes fierce. "You shouldn't be here," she cried. "I'm not leaving you," he said, loading his weapon. Not again. The council's army stormed in. Energy bolts filled the air. Ethan fought like a man possessed, defending her with everything he had. Every time he was hit, she flinched. Every time she raised her hands to fight, the air around her shimmered with power. But they were outnumbered. The hall was collapsing. Smoke and chaos swallowed everything. Then a blinding flash. The lead counselor appeared holding a blade of light. He lunged for Valora. Ethan saw it, and without thinking, he moved. The blade struck his chest. Valora screamed. Time seemed to freeze. She caught him before he fell, holding him in her arms as his blood stained her gown. "Ethan, no," she whispered, shaking him. "Please, don't you dare leave me now." He smiled weakly. "Guess I broke one more rule." Her tears fell like rain. "Why did you do that?" He looked up at her, his voice fading. "Because you taught me something. Even if the world says we're different, the heart doesn't care." Valora pressed her forehead against his, her voice trembling. "Don't go, please." But the light in his eyes dimmed slowly, peacefully. Silence fell. Then Valora rose, her power ignited like a supernova. The entire hall glowed with her fury, silver flames burning through marble and lies. The council's army fell back in terror as she unleashed her strength not as a queen, but as a woman who had lost everything. When the light faded, the hall was in ruins. The council was gone. Weeks later, peace returned, not the peace of obedience, but of mourning. The queen rebuilt her world with new laws. She ended the purity rule. Humans were no longer outsiders. She made a statue in the palace garden, a soldier standing tall with eyes of steel and a gentle smile. Every night she would visit it alone. The stars reflected in her eyes as she whispered softly, "You gave me courage, Ethan. I will carry it forever." And sometimes, when the wind passed through the garden, it carried a faint echo, like a voice laughing quietly, proud and warm. The queen smiled whenever she heard it, because she knew love once born never truly dies. It just finds a new way to shine.